Well, justice may finally be coming for David Hartley. He's the American tourist gunned down while jet skiing with his wife near the border of Mexico last September. Now, 2 more suspects have been identified, and CBS News correspondent Don Teague has the details.
5 months after David Hartley was shot to death while jet skiing with his wife on the Mexican side of Falcon Lake, authorities in Texas say they finally have suspects in his murder.
In that case, I believe there's about 7 or 8 shooters. We have identified 4 of those individuals.
The American's death was one of an estimated 12,000 murders in Mexico last year, 28 last weekend alone, most related to the country's ongoing drug war. His body has never been found. The search by Mexican authorities was called off after the lead investigator was beheaded in an apparent warning by drug cartel enforcers.
This gives us hope that we will have justice.
Hartley's family and his wife Tiffany criticized the Mexican government in the days after the shooting, claiming they weren't doing enough to find his killers or his body.
Please, negotiate this. Also, we want David home.
In recent months, Zapata County Sheriff Ziggy Gonzalez says U.S. and Mexican authorities seemed to have lost interest in the case.
Other than what we're doing locally, we don't know of any other agency, state or federal agency, doing anything else.
Gonzalez has not named the suspects. He's claiming they're members of the Zeta drug cartel who travel across the border to the U.S. frequently. He says he's confident the information will lead to arrests and justice for Tiffany and David Hartley. But 5 months after Hartley's murder, there's no real indication the case is close to being closed. Don Teague, CBS News, Dallas.
Joining us now in Washington is Congressman Ted Poe of Texas. He's been a leading voice in the fight to track down David Hartley's killers, and he joins us now this morning. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
We just heard in Don's piece there a second ago, the sheriff, Ziggy Gonzalez, who says he's identified more suspects now. He says he has new information that corroborates what Ms. Hartley has said all along. But he also says he's getting no help. So how, now that he's identified these men, how does he track them down, and how do you arrest them?
Well, Ziggy Gonzalez is the only person, Sheriff Gonzalez is the only person really working this case. It doesn't seem like the FBI nor the Mexican authorities are doing much about it at all. But we need cooperation with the Mexican authorities because all of these suspects cross back and forth from Mexico into the United States and back into Mexico. So they have to be captured either in the U.S. or in Mexico, generally by the federal authorities in one or both of the countries.
So how does this, I mean, how do you get this cooperation? Mexico says that the U.S. is not doing enough. The U.S. says that President Calderon is not doing enough. So it seems like there's a little bit of an impasse here. So what happens?
Well, you're correct. Mexico does blame the United States for their problems in Mexico, and they have a notoriously bad record for arresting these criminal gang members, much less prosecuting them. And so we just have to put the emphasis on Mexico to encourage them to use appropriate law enforcement to arrest these Zeta members. And also, Mexico should really allow more American law enforcement agents into Mexico to help them track down these gangs. For political reasons, Mexico is reluctant to do that. And then finally, we need to have the border secure. I've introduced legislation to put 10,000 National Guard troops on the border to keep people like the Zeta cartels from moving back and forth at will across the border.
Can I just real quick, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question in a second, but if I could just get a one-word yes or no answer. Is the Department of Homeland Security, do you think, doing enough with border control?
Not in my opinion, not at all.
Well, let me ask you this then. The violence is escalating. You've had a customs agent that we know that was ambushed and killed 2 weeks ago. What more is it going to take to get the Department of Homeland Security to make border control more of a priority in that region?
I think there needs to be an understanding that the border is out of control. Even the GAO has said recently that only about 44% of the entire border is under the control of the United States. That means 54 or 56% of it's controlled by someone else. And I think it's an awareness by Homeland Security. We protect the borders of other nations. Now it's time we start protecting our own.
All right, let me ask you one final question here. Spring break is right around the corner. Again, we're hearing of these mass killings in different parts of Mexico and along the Texas border. If you're a parent at home and you've got a kid that tells that they want to go on a trip to Mexico for spring break, what would you tell them?
Don't go to Mexico. I have 4 kids and eight grandkids, and no way I would let any of them go to Mexico, any parts of Mexico. Mexico is not safe for Americans or Mexican nationals because the drug cartels are really operating at will in different portions. So it's not safe, and they need to go somewhere else in the United States for spring break.
Congressman Ted Poe, thank you very much. Good talking with you this morning.